good.
Perfect. It is going.
Great. All right. So we're here today to talk about the Queen Mary.
Yes.
All right. If you will kind of describe it to our readers.
Yeah, it's a movie about one of the most haunted places in the United States, the Queen Mary, that had its origins all the way back to the White Star Line in Cunard, and it was actually the sister ship to the Titanic. And we claim, through all its history, that it was really the unsinkable ship. And there were numerous events that happened through the Queen Mary's history that kind of merit that kind of title. So we wanted to kind of visit into the origins and myths of what has happened to the ship over its 50, 60 years of sailing that has kept it afloat. And not all things were positive. There were a lot of mysterious deaths and other unexplained phenomena that happened during that tenure.
Right, and you actually filmed on the Queen Mary, is that right?
We filmed on the Queen Mary, yes, during COVID. So the whole movie was filmed during COVID and beyond, and it was probably the most intriguing, interesting, difficult situation I think I've ever been a part of. I kind of watch the making of Jaws with Steven Spielberg, and hear about the shark not working, and everything kind of going against him. This is basically the same exact story, probably times 10. So.
Can you tell us a little about it? About the chaos?
Yeah. I was just talking to my fellow producer today. I'm like, we could almost make a movie about the making of the Queen Mary at this point. But as you know, it started off with COVID hitting everybody. And then we wanted to film the movie on the ship, the whole movie on the ship. And no one was giving COVID insurance. So we couldn't film on the ship. So we had to find a country that basically would give COVID insurance, because no bond would bond the movie and give us insurance without that. So we had to go to the UK. So it started off with me leaving to the UK, flying over the Queen Mary, heading to the UK, of which the Queen Mary is completely empty. And we had the whole run of the ship to film on it, and we couldn't film on it. So we went over to the UK, and we actually did shooting on the Queen Mary in terms of three-dimensional scans. So much like Mandalorian, we actually did a virtual stage in the UK and made it look like, from the scans of the ship, like we were on the ship. And then later we went back to the ship to film when we could. But we did everything from people having a heart attack on the set. Our main actor, Joel Fry, did not arrive on the set until the final, I think, 12 days of filming. So that was a challenge, because he had an HBO commitment for Our Flag Means Death. Then we had House of the Dragon steal our equipment and not return it when we booked it. So they basically said, come and get it off our set. We're not returning it because we don't think we'll ever get it back, because there were so many productions going on inside the UK, because the UK was one of the few countries providing COVID insurance. So there were days that we didn't have huge aerial lighting balloons to light sections of our set. Then we had Netflix trying to poach actual department heads in the middle of our filming, of which they got two of our department heads to quit in the middle of filming to go and take a Netflix job for double the price. So we had a situation where one of our longtime visual effects studios that had been in business for 30 years, that was supposed to do all our visual effects, they went bankrupt second day into filming. Then the Queen Mary went bankrupt, as you could read in the LA Times. And then they wouldn't allow us into the country because all our actors that wanted to film on the Queen Mary didn't have the visas to get approved, because obviously the United States wasn't allowing people back from Ireland and the UK into our country at the time. And then we had another woman who was so tired working on the set because we were pulling long hours, stab herself in the abdomen while she was shredding curtains. And then we had the whole country of the UK ran out of gas for 2 weeks. So we had to Uber everybody, an entire 200 people, to and from work every day. So we had an entire staff just booking Uber rides the whole entire day.
Wow.
I mean, and I won't even tell you the other stuff that went on, but it is just unbelievable. And then, as you know, when you're filming on the Queen Mary, we couldn't film in all sections because we couldn't film in all the sections because they were renovating the ship at the time, and there were hazardous danger zones where they were really worried about safety. So, yeah, so it's been an adventure, and the fact that we actually have a film in the can is kind of an act of God. I'm very, very happy it all kind of worked out, in a way. So,
That is so insane.
yeah.
It is really a miracle that y'all got to finish filming it all.
Yeah,
I mean,
we were laughing because when we ran out of water, when we ran out of gas, we had all these water scenes that we had to film drownings in with kids and everything else, and the kids couldn't get into the tank that we had on the set of, which were usually one of the tanks that Titanic used. They couldn't do that because they couldn't heat the water. So the kids, safety officers were saying, sorry, kids aren't going to eat wetsuit or not into a cold vat of water for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. They'll get hypothermia. So we had to build a makeshift pool that you got at Home Depot, no joke, to film the whole drowning sequences. And I'm just like, I just had to laugh because every day was like this, so,
wow, that's rough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I'm surprised I have all my hair, basically, is what I'm saying. So, I keep on cutting the grays out the side, so.
You definitely have some determination to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And it's a good movie, and it looks great. I mean, it really does. It has some fantastic cinematography.
Yeah, our cinematographer was great. He just finished doing Loki season 2, so that's coming out, I believe, in a couple weeks. He's fantastic, and Gary, our director, had a real vision. It was just unfortunate that everything. You didn't have reshoots. You didn't have there's some portions of the movie that I wish we could have added an extra day or two to kind of round it out a little bit more, but. It does look phenomenal, and I think it's a good ghost story. And Gary kind of wanted to make something in the vein of kind of The Shining, where it had that tone. And it's kind of funny because if you watch The Shining, it's kind of the same elements. There's a lot of craziness going on. Some things that you have no idea what's going on, but there are some scary moments. And then obviously it's more story driven. So, we tried to do it justice, but, I feel at times, God wasn't on our side.
It sounds like it was cursed.
Yeah. It's, yeah. It was funny. Yep.
It's insane how much it takes to make a film.
Yeah.
Even when everything goes as, scheduled, as wanted, and then to have something just complete chaos.
Yeah, and I mean, I talked to a lot of people that are in the horror industry, like Oren Paley, who did Paranormal Activity, and James Wan's team. And I mean, I know what the formula is to make these movies. And I will tell you, an entire horror film usually comes together after you film the film, and then you have to go back and shoot a week of reshoots, or 5, 6, 7 days, because James is always going back and reshooting scares, and, it's really funny because that 5 to 7 days that you're doing reshoots on are really what takes the film from a C film to a possible B plus, A plus film, and because what you're missing. So it's very, very difficult when you can't go back and do that, and you don't have reshoots, because this film actually stretched from starting, 1 year and trailing off into the next, because we went from doing, I think, what was supposed to be 250 visual effects shots to almost 815, which is a little different when you're not filming on the Queen Mary,
Yeah, but it all looks good, and the sections of the film that are featured, the past in 1938, I believe. They look so rich and so well put together. I mean, it looks very, very realistic.
Yeah, and actually that section of the film that you're talking about was on a visual effects stage. that entire ballroom that was replicated from the Queen Mary, 100% visual effects. And I was just blown away of watching the camera move and the backdrop of all these LED screens move at the same time following the camera. It was very impressive. And our art director, DP, and even Gary, they have such an eye for making something really, really beautiful. And they wanted to kind of match the light of The Godfather, in those scenes. And I think they really did a great job, all the way across the board. So.
And they did. And as for the story, it's really kind of in three different stories.
Yeah.
But they're easy to follow, and you understand what's going on with them. And, it kind of leaves that present day, that history, and then the actual ship.
Yep.
It's just something really interesting.
Yeah, I think what Gary's vision from day one was actually coming up with, you always see these type of possession movies, and it's always a demon that's possessed you or whatever. And what really was fascinating to Gary was explaining the original sin of the ship and why it was unsinkable. And what was fascinating to him was, you look at the Curacao accident where the Queen Mary ran over a military vessel and survived. And you look at all the times Hitler put a bounty of $250,000 in an Iron Cross, metal on the line to sink the Queen Mary when it was housing and carrying over troops for the war, and they never found it once, which is the reason why it was called the Gray Ghost. And then you look at all the bankruptcies, and then you look at German soldiers trying to sabotage it who are prisoners of war, or just any of these things, or the tidal wave that hit the side of the ship, and then instead of sinking her, which was basically a movie called The Poseidon Adventure, it comes back up and resurfaces. So all those things, you almost feel like the ship is blessed in a way. And Gary, coming from Ireland and loving and studying kind of ritualistic sacrifice, because there was a lot of those kind of myths in Irish lore, wanted to kind of look at how desperate the people of Ireland were and the UK when the Great Depression hit, and they had the problem with the Queen Mary being unfinished and all the shipyards closed, and on top of that, the Titanic disaster. So all those people were out of work for months and months, and the shipping town that's the life's blood. So you had people starving, and this idea of sacrificing a worker, to ultimately bind him to a prestigious vessel goes all the way back, to the Egyptians. And even the whole song of London Bridges Falling Down is the idea of locking a guy to the bridge, the actual establishment, and having him watch over the bridge in the afterlife to make sure it's always protected. So that's where our kind of history goes, is this sacrifice has basically saved the ship, protected the ship, and anyone who dies on the ship stays on the ship. And it just gets stronger and stronger through this aura, through this power. And I think it's really interesting to see one family's ultimate, arrival on the ship and passage on the ship later, and you learn how they ultimately pass away, and now they're haunting a new family, and instead of just a ghost blindly showing up and you don't know their backstory, you are visiting the present in 1938 as it's weaving back and forth as these events occur. And I haven't really seen something like that, and it's a little different. And if you pay attention to the movie, you'll follow it through all the clues that Gary's left you. But if it's one of these things that you're a streamer movie and you think you're going to walk away to the kitchen for 5 minutes, and come back and still pick up where you're at, you're going to get lost very quickly. So, and I just hope our viewers actually sit down and watch the movie, which is, it's a credit to Gary's storytelling.
It really is, and I love that interesting aspect of sacrifice to, protect the ship. Mm-hmm. And it really is interesting, and it's a great story, and I love that we get so many different sides of the story between, the past, present day, and then the captain.
Yep. Yep, and
And
the captain, as you know, I mean, it's just a great character, and our actors are just phenomenal. I mean, they were really, really solid all the way through, and it is a very complex story of what's going on. But I mean, to find out, kind of what's going on with the captain, his knowledge or non-knowledge of what's going on and how it affects both families, is very interesting. So, there is, even if you look back to The Shining, there's a lot of little confusion, but clues through the whole thing of what's going on. And, people can, that want to see something really unique. I think this is probably it, because it isn't the typical horror film where you can follow very easily what's going on and it's all just surrounding, the haunting and the scares,
it's definitely one of those movies that you can't watch for 15 minutes. Be like, oh, I know who's going to die. I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not one of those. Definitely not.
Yeah, it's something unique. And I think that's why Gary really, really wanted to work hard on making sure it was carried over. The score, works really, really well with the entire film. And the other thing that I was really, really proud of is looking at the start to finish, and it seems to really weave well with the hidden clues. And it's almost like if you take the time to watch it a second and third time, it's almost like a little bit like The Sixth Sense, where you can see that Night Shyamalan left the clues behind with all the scenes that had red in them, whether it be a red napkin or a red candle or a red doorknob, of which scenes were the most important, where it was giving you away what was actually coming down the line or which was actually happening, at that moment. So.
Right, yeah, it's definitely an interesting film. One of those that will keep you on the edge of your seat and not, well, I can watch TikTok while I watch the movie kind of film.
Yep, exactly. No,
And we need those unique, interesting films that we haven't seen the plot, time and time again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those films. I think it's going to be a little like a cult film, if anything, that's going to carry on and kind of get through the years, is kind of picking up of, hey, you should check this out, because I've just gotten to the point with horror that I've been in this, business for a long time, and I just feel that everything's become so formulaic at this point, where the things I'm actually interested in was things that actually aren't the commercial stuff. Like I was really, interested in checking out actually that Voyage Dracula movie that actually just came out a couple of weeks ago, that actually looked very, very interesting, as opposed to seeing Megan, or going and seeing The Nun 2, which I don't know why they're making The Nun 2 when The Nun 1 was terrible. So it's just like, I think there's a lot of great opportunities, and the good news is that kids nowadays, as you know, are now capable of making these films on the fly, where you can make a Buried with like Ryan Reynolds and not have to have $6 million, or you can make a Paranormal Activity inside your house and you have all the equipment, which wasn't available, 7-8 years ago. So hopefully we'll see more of that. So.
And I hope so. But you were involved with another movie that I actually really liked, Winchester.
Yeah, Winchester is one of those films that is difficult for me, because I'm so used to wanting to go and really, really hardcore go into scares. And both of our directors on Winchester and Queen Mary, they were not huge fans of jump scares. They kind of viewed it as cheap, and wanting to tell more of a story. And I liked Winchester. I think Winchester was great, but the problem when we run into these movies, which Helen Mirren and Jason Clarke were phenomenal, was getting into this weird point of, are you making the R-rated movie that everybody wants to see, or can you stick with PG-13 because that's Helen Mirren's audience, and that's also, really where the house that, wants to be, because they're a family-friendly establishment, and this can't be the strangers at the Winchester house. So, but I thought it was really intriguing, because the concept the Spear brothers came up with was also a unique concept, and that is, the fact that she created these death rooms, that she penciled out. And when she came up with one and she was desperately trying to find, her husband and daughter, but every room she came out, she couldn't control it. And she would create these death rooms, and then realizing it wasn't her husband, it was another victim of the Winchester rifle, she would basically lock them in, using 13 nails. And I thought that was a pretty interesting concept, to have a house basically of nonstop death rooms, because she always felt very guilty for the invention that her husband created. So, but I think creating a character like Helen Mirren, Saul and Sarah Winchester, of a woman who clearly was bothered, by the blood money, that was her lifeline, and her being very, very, I would say, lonely, of always having these workers on her property 38 years straight, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's something very unique in that story. So.
Well, I enjoyed it. I like the tension built part. Not jump scares, but the ones that slowly build and are revealed. And well, Helen Mirren she's an amazing actress anyway.
Yeah.
Having her in that position, and I've always been interested in the house itself because it's a fascinating story.
Yep. It is.
I loved it.
Yeah. It's absolutely an amazing house, amazing subject matter. We're trying to work on Winchester 2 right now, so hopefully there'll be another one. It performed really, really well internationally, and I was really happy with how it performed in the U.S. And I think that the biggest thing with these movies now is just we've been trained to watch James Wan and Blumhouse movies where everything is built around the trailers with the jump scares, and it's really hard when, you get these movies that you look back in the 80s and 90s that didn't have a lot of that. If you look at The Shining's a pretty, I guess, tepid movie of what happens on jump scares. I believe the only thing that was really jumpy was the axe coming through with Jack Nicholson through the door, but I really hope that the horror audiences, aside from Winchester and Queen Mary, start going and looking at some of these other films, because they're coming out from all around the globe, and it's really unique to see what people are doing without having to do a jump scare, just the creepy vibes, because I think that's what Gary and the Spirit Brothers really achieved, is feeling creeped out through the whole entire film, And the fact that you're not filming at the Queen Mary for the whole movie, and you're not filming at the Winchester house for the whole movie. I mean, Winchester house, that film, the majority of it was in Australia. We only filmed at the house for maybe 3 days. Yeah, only the exteriors. So realistically, my biggest reward as a producer is people not making a negative comment and saying, you could clearly see that they didn't film at the Queen Mary, or they clearly did not film at the Winchester house, because 95% we didn't. And no one seems to make that comment. So I'm really, really happy that at least we did the architecture and the design justice, with the directors, really being sticklers for detail. So.
Right. Well, I thought they were both fantastic. And I wasn't aware until I did a little research that you do more than just movies and TV. You were involved with Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, we invested in Moulin Rouge way back when. So, and obviously I got 12 or 13 Tonys, which was amazing. So that was a phenomenal experience. And now it's like Moulin Rouge, the U.S. traveling show, and Moulin Rouge, New York, Broadway, and Moulin Rouge, London, and Australia. And I believe there's now a European tour, and I believe there's another 2 other shows somewhere over in Asia. So it's become quite a phenomenal success. So I'm hoping it'll go for another 5 to 10 years with how it's going. So I'd love to have a Hamilton hit on our hands. So, but yeah, it's really exciting.
For a musical.
Yeah, it is, because I will tell you, we I was hoping that the show would stay on because it actually debuted, and then we went down for COVID for 2 years, and I was hoping we would keep the phenomenal staff of actors that we had signed, and someone didn't take another job or whatever, but everyone came back and at least got its run with its original cast. So I was really fortunate for that. But yeah, it was exciting times. So
Yeah. Okay. So tell us what you're working on now.
we're doing a gaming company right now and getting into mobile games, which is now what everyone's doing. And we have an A-list celebrity, and I can't say who it is yet, but we'll make an announcement in the next 30 days that is going to be heading the entire gaming company, putting his name on the gaming company. And we're rolling out Ghostbusters, Hello Kitty game, and a Peanuts game as our first games out, which are really super exciting. And then we have 2 movies right now with the producers of The Quiet Place that we're looking to do. So that is really exciting. So we're just trying to make sure the scripts are where they need to be, and get the financing in place, and that's where we're going to go off and try to focus on next. But fingers crossed. So
Yeah, well, I hope so. And I know that the Haunting of the Queen Mary has already opened in theaters. Do you have any idea when it may be coming home?
yeah, I know that it's supposed to be debuting on a streamer Thanksgiving week, is what we're told. So it will be on, I can't say which one, but it will be on a main streamer the week of Thanksgiving. So we're excited about that. So right now it's on all the VOD platforms from Apple to Amazon to, everyone you can imagine. So, we're excited about that. And then it is breaking out worldwide, I believe, starting this week. From this week to the last week of November, it is going worldwide to every country. So I think we sold every single country so far. So it'll be going to Latin America. I think it already debuted in Russia and Italy. Those are the 2 places, but it'll be going to Germany and Australia and the UK and all of these places. So over the next 3 months, which is usually standard for a theatrical release. So super excited about that. And then the other thing is our new soundtrack, which the music on the film was just phenomenal. But the Livesey's, Jason and Nolan, who are composers, were just phenomenal through, if you've heard the music through the entire film, they did a great job with capturing the Queen Mary and the eerie moments, and they spent, a year and a half on composing that soundtrack, which was phenomenal, and Lakeshore released it. And we also had a phenomenal performer out of Nashville called Tiffany Ashton, and she did an original song called It Had to Be You, and she did it in the vibe of Lana Del Rey, where she changed the lyrics into a spirit aiming to possess a vessel to get off the ship. So it's a very dark rendition of It Had to Be You, as she's trying to pick out her new vessel to leave off the ship. And that is, I think, now being considered for Grammy consideration. So we're super excited about that. So yeah, everyone who worked on the project, is still breathing. Thank God they survived. We had to only resuscitate them a few times, but we had a great, talented group of individuals. So,
Well, that's fantastic, and it really is, and I can't wait for everybody to see it so we can all talk about it without spoilers and things like that. But like I said, I really enjoyed it.
Yep.
I loved the history aspect of both the Haunting of Queen Mary and Winchester, because I'm a sucker for history.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
when you, like you said, sucker for history, whenever you can go and take something and it's actually based on real facts that people can look up and go, oh, this wasn't just a made up ship or a made up house, this actually exists, and you can tour through it, there adds a little extra magic to that. So
yeah, I'll take history over conjured creatures any day of the week.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, you look at, like I said before, over and over again, The Shining, and looking the Stanley Hotel, and just what that's done, and all, even, I mean, some of these haunted locations around, the United States. We have one down in San Diego that's a little Western judge's house, as you know, probably, in Old Town. And God, the tourists just flock to that place because it has a huge haunted history around the judge's death and what happened. So it's exciting. I mean, everywhere you go, from the castles of Tower of London, all that stuff is just very intriguing, given how many centuries it's survived, and what's gone on, through those centuries. So,
Right.
yep.
Since we're on the subject,
Yeah.
did you experience anything while you were on the ship?
What's so funny is, no, I'm oblivious to it. I'm the guy who probably could see a full apparition off to the right hand side and just walk past it. And I have walked through the Winchester Mystery House many times at 2 o'clock in the morning with no lights on, with my camera phone, and just walk through as I'm shutting off audio for a haunted house or whatever. And I nothing, but I have had numerous people who are, like, for instance, one of our guys who was the president of Virgin for Richard Branson, and he is a very analytical guy, is not spiritual whatsoever. His whole reason why he signed the rights was one of the first rights holders with me at his studio, was that he saw Sarah Winchester when he was very young on a tour. And he goes, I saw a veiled woman in complete black dress, black veil, black everything, staring at me at the end of a hallway. And I pointed out to my mom, and she was gone. And he goes, I know I saw her. The whole room got cold. It was, he goes, my parents, who my dad is an accountant, he has seen things, we've had actors that we've put into sections of the house, one section a little bit more haunted than the other, and they quit on us after day one, after being left alone for 6 hours in the witch's cap, and these girls were scared out of their minds and left us, both quit within, I think, the first 4 to 5 hours of the shift. They said things were falling down. They heard people walking towards them. I mean, just really creepy stuff. So, and we probably had, maybe over the course of us doing a haunted house at the Winchester House over 31 days, we probably had about 16 or 17 people quit because they had an experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back to both movies and see if I can find anything hidden or peeking around a corner or something.
You're absolutely right, because it's always finding that dark shadow staring at you in the corner. And we've seen a lot of photos like that with Jackie in the pool and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we love looking at spirit photography of stuff, so, which is why it was so important for Gary to kind of capture the wet footprints on the pool and the sound of wet footprints, because that's a big myth of the Queen Mary, or Fedora Man or whatever. I mean, we really tried to capture the pool as a portal, and all of that. So it's trying to cram all those myths in to make sense of one story. So, yeah, I hope it all worked out.
It did. It really did. Mm-hmm. And, we need more of those kind of movies. Those, movies like The Winchester and The Haunting of the Queen Mary. And I can't wait to see what you dig up next.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, nowadays, God, we're not making anything, as everybody knows. So we'll see how long this goes, but I think it's going to go for a while, So, yeah, it's unfortunate because a lot of people are suffering. I think it's very interesting where the industry is headed, with streamers really seeing the lack of retention and watching people jump from streamer to streamer, where they're experiencing a 40%, drop of people moving from streamer to streamer after something releases, so, and not having that customer loyalty that they had in the past, that they could always put out a film and people would go see it in the theaters, because that's the really disappointing thing is, movies like The Queen Mary would go to a theater usually now, but now studios don't want to put out the P&A, and they're only going to promote something that's a tentpole, at this point, because their attitude is it still hasn't recovered since COVID, and unless it's a big brand or a tentpole, that's the only thing they're going to put P&A money into at that point. So all these horror films that should be getting theatrical releases to build the new franchises, are not. So it's unfortunate. So
it is, but the horror genre will always survive.
It will. It will. I mean, there's always going to be an interest, and I tell people all the time that there's only 2 to 3 genres that go worldwide, and it's horror and adventure are really the 2 that translate across all languages and nationalities. So romance, comedy, drama, not the same. So,
Horror fans are very dedicated.
They're very much so, and they're getting very sophisticated with all these different directors coming into the marketplace. And unfortunately, I just wish that there's so much content. I wish the streamers would further separate the content from the people who have made the movie for $50,000. That is clearly a very, very poor take on horror versus the ones that are, and it doesn't even have to be based on budget, because I've seen my friend do something amazing with $15,000, but being able to watch, through your own buyers and not be Netflix where you just flood everything into your portal and half your time is separating the crap from the the actual quality, and that shouldn't be, unfortunately, the viewer's, job. Everything should be amazing on that platform. So let's hope that the cream will rise to the top eventually, not everything on a platform. Because I'm sure you've been on a few movies where you're like, oh, the artwork looks great, the trailer looks decent, then you watch the film and you're like, that's 2 hours of my life I wish I had back.
I actually said that in a review the other day.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah, and it was actually for a big budget movie that was just drugged.
Yep. It's tough now, and nowadays finding 2 hours to watch anything is difficult. So, yep, but they'll always be the product. Let's see. I'm actually a little disappointed this, holiday season. There's really not a lot of horror films coming out. You have really The Nun 2 and The Exorcist and, Five Nights at Freddy's, and and that's a perfect example of just studio tentpoles, or known brands, getting the releases, so, yep.
Yeah, you got to thank God for indie films too.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because, you're not going to get the Paranormal Activities anymore, unless it just tests off the reservation, but yeah, even then is questionable. So, yep. New world.
It's all about making an easy buck.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It is, because VOD, no P&A, just throw it out there to the streamers and let's make some money, So, yep. Who would have thought? God knows where we'll be in 5 years, So, yep.
Who knows? Mm-hmm. But, it's, you got to have heart. It's always been there. It always will be.
Yep.
And that's, a very, very good thing, especially for me.
Yep.
But, yeah, and it's great that, I'm glad that you're not only there putting out movies, but working on TV series, musicals, games. You are a busy man.
We try to be. I'm just trying to keep my sanity, as you know. It's just, it's a tough battle all the way through to get anything made nowadays. And you're watching the industry change. And the one thing I'm noticing is it's very clear that the future is gaming and storytelling in gaming, because gaming is a bigger industry than TV, feature films, and musicals, stage put together. And it's really just going to become more and more immersive when Apple starts releasing AR, VR headsets and, you know, AR glasses, so it's going to be very, very interesting on what the new innovation is going to be, but it's going to be so much more advanced than just covering your entire head, with a 5-pound apparatus, which is not ideal right now, but it is going to get more and more progressive, and that's going to be the new mode of storytelling. And I can't even imagine seeing a movie maybe in 10 years from now where you can look left and look right and look behind you and you're in a 360 view, of what's happening, so
that would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine hearing something through ASMR sound on your left-hand side and turning and somebody running at you? I mean, yeah. So, yep. Anyway.
It would be amazing.
Yeah. It'll probably give people heart attacks and they'll have to stop, but yeah. Because I already watch movies, and the moment I wake up at 3 o'clock hearing a noise downstairs, I immediately think it's a serial killer downstairs that has an axe or a sickle, coming after me. So
you need to get some dogs. That way you don't have to worry about them tickling you.
Exactly. That would be ideal. So fingers crossed that works out. So I need to get a new one.
Start barking.
Yep, exactly. Yep, totally. Anyway, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing, and let us know how we can be supportive of your venture going forward, because we're going to keep the word out on all new filmmakers. So.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Definitely, and as soon as the home release is announced for The Haunting of the Queen Mary, let me know, and I'll be happy to share the news, because people are definitely going to want to check it out.
Yeah, it's very cool, and as you can imagine, the moment it lands on a streamer, viewership will go up 90%, so it's funny. I was watching that the other day. It just happened the other day with The Pope's Exorcist, and everyone was kind of, hammering a horror film on Rotten Tomatoes like they always do, where they always give it a decent one's usually a 40 to 50%, and nobody likes this, and then it goes on Netflix and it's number one for streaming, for the week,
I find that there's usually a big difference between what a critic says and what a fan says.
Yeah.
So when you're like me, I happen to be a critic who is a horror fan first.
Yep.
I'm more willing to, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Watch the spooky stuff and love it, because horror is definitely my thing.
Yeah, it's definitely fun, and there's just so many ways to scare people, And I find it interesting more and more of what gets people, because, I went and saw Barbarian the other day, and I was just like, okay, this is interesting. It doesn't have a lot of jump scares. It has no backstory as to why this is happening, but people loved it because it had a really cool creature, and it had a really good kind of vibe of foreboding, getting deeper and deeper into that cave. And it's just interesting. But God, I mean, I never thought a movie without any kind of backstory whatsoever as to why this was happening would be like a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's really intriguing, how storytelling is just breaking the molds, So, because I was just waiting for that flashback. And the flashback that they did provide, had nothing to do with really the backstory other than the guy going and buying the milk at the supermarket. I'm like, okay, well, we could have guessed that happened at some point, So it's really interesting. I mean, and then you look at Guillermo del Toro with what he does with Crimson Peak and all of that, and it's going to be an interesting future. So
it definitely is, and I love my scares in any way I can get them.
Yeah.
I'm a bit jaded by now, but I love a good story above some jump scares.
Yep. I agree. Story's always going to win out. So just whether or not you get the eyeballs now, because there's a lot of content out there.
Right. Trust me. I know.
Yep. Totally. Oh, my God. Well, thank you very much for your time. And let me know how I can be any support to Horror Fuel. I'm really excited to be involved, and just give me a call. I'm here.
Definitely, same thing. You need anything, let me know.
Okay.
And I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Sounds
And I
great.
hope you have a great day.
You too. Have a good one, Kelly.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye.